I want to have a discussion about the Maple Leafs prospects because there's this weird, thought process with a bunch of Leaf fans that Kyle Dubas has traded everything and anything away, and they have nothing in the cupboard. There's no prospects because they've had no first round picks over the last few years. And unfortunately, the one first round pick that they have had, Rodion Amirov, experiencing a brain tumor. And, we obviously wish nothing but the best and give all our support out to him. And hopefully he can fight that, such a young age. But outside of him, there really hasn't been a first round pick since Rasmus Sandin. So you're going a few years here without success coming in the first round. And do they have the prospect capital to land a big fish out there if the Leafs want to go big game hunting and get a JT Miller, or if they want to go out and get a Jacob Chikrin, or potentially swing a deal for a Marc-Andre Fleury if the goaltending seems to not be here right now? Like, do they have the prospect capital to get it done here, you think?
I think they do, because despite the fact that, like you mentioned, they haven't really had a first round pick since Sandin, they've still managed to stay in the top half of the league's prospect pools. And that's because they've been excellent at drafting deep in the draft. And I think that's part of their philosophy, is they like to take swings for the fences. So they have a guy like Dmitriev Chinnikov, who they drafted late, I think it's sixth or seventh round. And he's been one of the best prospects in Russian junior hockey, and now he's come over here. He signed his entry-level deal and everything. So you're seeing other guys from deep in the draft. Ryan Tverberg has had an excellent year. He's a guy that was getting Team Canada consideration. It was really impressive when he was at the Canada camp, because he was one of the best players there.
Seventh round pick, this guy. I think they traded back into the draft to make that pick, didn't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's just it. Like, they've drafted extremely efficiently. I mean, you even look back to trading back. Kyle Dubas' specialty. A couple years ago, they traded back the pick that ended up going for Tyler Clevin, who, in my opinion, was not a top 110, top 150 even player in the draft, to be completely honest. And they traded, I think he went 44th, but they traded back to get Topi Niemela and Ronnie Hirvonen, who were two players who I had ranked inside of the top 60. So it's just impressive to see the way they work the drafts, and they do have the draft capital, because, like I said, I've named a bunch of players already, and I haven't even named Matthew Nyes. I haven't named Nick Robertson or Alex Steves, who's a guy that's emerged, and he's just a college free agent. So they're finding guys. They're an excellent scouting team, and they have the resources to go and get a guy from college or get someone from Europe and kind of make them a functional player in the NHL.
Do you have a comment there, Dave?
Well, and I think you're right there, and some are wondering if the Leafs are trying to, because Nick Robertson's had such a tough couple of years, injuries and the pandemic taking away playing time.
I think now 40 games since the pandemic. 40 games. That's all he's been able to play because of injury and the pandemic. It's not a lot for a guy who's 19, 20 years old who's trying to develop. It's very unideal, you could say, for his development.
And some are wondering, are the Leafs trying to showcase him? Are they just trying to see how he looks in the big club? Like, what do you assess what the Leafs are trying to do with them?
When they first called him up, I was like, this is the guy they're going to throw on that second line to try to get things going. And I still think that's what they should do. But right now they're running him on the fourth line. And I mean, to their credit, he hasn't played exactly super well. He had a really good third period, I thought, tonight. And he had a couple turnover, takeaways that led to scoring chances. So the IQ's still there. The effort's still there. That's not an issue. I think it's just kind of getting used to the NHL level. But this is a guy that I think still has an incredibly high potential, because his shot is ridiculous. He's got the offensive motor, so it's not like he's not working hard or anything. So I would love to see him have success at the NHL level, but I think they need to put him in a position to have success in the NHL level. Put him on the fourth line at the end of the day with Jason Spezza, who we all love him. There's no doubt about that. But he's still a 38-year-old, 39-year-old Jason Spezza. You put him out there with Wayne Simmons, and Wayne Simmons is our dude. We all love Wayne Simmons. He's our boy, but they're not necessarily the players that you want to get a young prospect thriving offensively with. So I think if you put him with Tavares and Nylander, who I think both of those two looked really good tonight, despite the fact that they didn't really dominate the game. They played solid, and they got the goal, and the Tavares had the 2 assists and everything. So you look at those two, and you put him with them, because they've had a rotating cast of characters on that second line right now. So put Robertson there, let him succeed. And then move Kashadan back down to the third line, move Engvall down to the fourth line. And then you start to develop all this crazy depth that we've seen throughout the year by purely putting Nick Robertson in a spot to succeed.
Yeah, it's really interesting because if you do subscribe to the theory that they're showcasing him, Not doing a very good job of doing that on the
Yeah.
fourth line. But at the same time, at 20 years old, like if you're going to play him in the NHL, play him in your top six, especially when you're not happy with what's going on with the guys who played there, namely Alex Kerfoot. And he didn't play horrible tonight, but I still think that Nick Robertson. I was with you when he first got pulled up. I was like, all right, good, because Robertson's a bit of a spark plug player.
Yeah.
Like he can really energize a line. And if I'm Sheldon Keefe, like I look down the bench and I look at Willie, who sometimes can be a little bit inconsistent and a little lackadaisical, and say, you're really going to get outworked by a 20-year-old out there? Why don't you pick your game up? You know what I mean? Like that's how I thought that was going to go, but he's only playing, 10, 11, 12 minutes putting around on the fourth line with Spezza and Wayne Simmons. And I think, yeah, the I didn't even notice him at all in Detroit, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
not even sure if he touched the ice. I don't think I heard his name called once on the broadcast. And then tonight there was specifically the one play where he kept possession alive in the ozone, knocked down a pass, and then I think Spezza or Simmons ended up getting a decent chance out of it, like late in the third period. But outside of that, also I haven't seen much. But is he in a position to flourish? I don't think he is. Also, so it's almost like it's just a detriment. Like, what if you're just going to bring somebody up for a fourth line? Why not bring up Alex Steves, or why not
Exactly.
allow a guy, Kyle
Joey
Clifford,
Anderson.
or like who's that?
Joey Anderson, like someone
Joey
that
Anderson. Yeah, like I don't quite understand what they're doing with Robertson. Like if they want to get a look at him, they're not getting a fair shake, or they're not getting a fair look. They're not giving him a fair opportunity. And if you're trying to showcase him, you're not doing a very good job either, because he's not building value on the fourth line.
And that's
So
just it. I think he can serve that Michael Bunting role. I don't think he's quite at the level Bunting is right now. I mean, Bunting's 26, Robertson's 20. Bunting's the
man,
oldest rookie ever.
Imagine saying that 6 months ago.
I know, right? And but the thing is, like, Nick Robertson's still got to get used to the NHL, and he's still got to get the strength to be in the NHL. Whereas Bunting kind of has that now that he's a little bit older. But Nick Robertson still has this incredible upside, incredible work ethic, and he can play that role on that Tavares line, because Tavares will take on a little bit more of that muscle role when he needs to. So you get that energy, get that creativity out there, and like you said, like that could be the position to succeed. But the rest of the prospect pool is deep too. Like they have guys that teams will be interested in for sure.
So if you are Kyle Dubas at the deadline, where do you see the biggest need for this team at this point? Is it goaltending with what we've seen as of late? Do you still got to stock up on maybe one top four guy, maybe two top four guys? Do you think that you need to pinpoint somebody to put up in the top six to bolster that second line and bolster that, offensive depth? Like if you are Kyle Dubas, how are you approaching the NHL trade deadline, and kind of what kind of carrots are you dangling to make that happen?
If I'm Kyle Dubas right now, first thing I'm doing is going down to Sheldon Keefe's office, and I'm like, listen, you got a little bit of a cushy schedule coming up. It's not a ton of the big boys. Put Robertson in that top six. Let's see what he can do. Like we need to see that before we make any move, because if Robertson's not going to be the answer there, then they need to find an answer there, I think. And whether that's getting Andre Kasha going on that line or doing something, you have to find something to get that second line going. So I don't know if it's a JT Miller. I think that's kind of a big move. I'd love to see it because it'd just be a ton of fun to see him on the Leafs, but there's cap implications going forward with him as well and everything. So it's a little bit more of a pipe dream situation. But if I'm having to pinpoint one spot, I'm not worrying about the goaltending. At the end of the day, Jack Campbell was an all-star. Peter Mrazek's as worrisome as he is, he's an above average goalie. I think he's better than at least
You use the word was, and you used it correctly. And
yeah.
that's where the worry does come in, right?
And that's just it. I think Jack will get on track, and hopefully he's the guy that over his entire Leafs tenure, we can either go, okay, what was his first 45, 50 games, or what was the last 5-10 games? And even going in I give him a little bit of a break for his December and January early struggles, because there was like 3 games in 27 days or something stupid. It was a little ridiculous for him to be so inconsistently playing. But at the same time, you do need to see him get going, and hopefully there's something that can work out. But I think at the end of the day, with what you have invested in net, you have to go, this is kind of it for us. Like, unless we can move Mrazek out in the deal, I don't know if there's a deal there to be had in net. As for the defensive depth, I'd like to see one top 4 defenseman. I think that's probably what they need. I think Rasmus Sandin has proven that he can play in the top 4 when needed. But ideally, you'd love to see him and Lyubushkin on the second pair or third pairing. Sorry, and I think that's an elite third pairing in the playoffs. I think Timothy Liljegren's proven that he can play somewhere in the lineup, and you go, okay, this Justin Hall just had a great game. Is this the point where we move him out as part of a package out? Because I think you will have to move one defenseman out as well, because then you will have this kind of weird log jam. And then are you going to have Hall sitting out all the time? Are you going to have a guy like Muzzin kind of questioning his role, or like Bushkin, who you just brought in? So I think you find a top 4 guy with Hall going out, unfortunately. And Dermott, I think, is an option to go out as well, because he's kind of found himself out of the mix now that Liljegren and Sandin have kind of proven themselves to be clear top 6 defensemen on this team. And like I said, up front, I think it's a bit of a pipe dream to find someone that's going to be a huge impact. But man, I'd love to see a guy like Andre Kasha get a spot there, or Nick Robertson, and see what run they can get. Give them 2 or 3 games up there and see what they can do. And if there's chemistry, if there's movement, if there's like progress being made and play being driven properly, then I think those are the guys for your answer there. But for one spot, it's got to be the D spot for me.
Imagine if they still had Mason Marchment.
But can we really go on about that though? It's like the Carter Verhaeghe thing.
Absolutely,
it's one of these things.
Go on about it.
Yeah, it's fine though. At the end of the day, like, we had to move guys. Like, we had to, and admittedly, the Marchment one was kind of a goofy one with Melgan not even being a factor anymore. But for all the deals that Dubas has made in the trades, at least, we're not talking about signings, but trades, Dubas has been a really good trader. So you're going to lose a couple here and there.
Yeah, he has been. I'm just goofing. I always, just because the guy has 2 hat tricks this year and averaging a point per game. It's incredible what that guy is doing, considering he played on 1 game, scored a goal, and they're like, all right, let's move this guy. I was like, okay, that's an interesting decision, but alrighty then. Another player, actually, like a former Leaf who was dealt in a prospect, or dealt in a trade, that is averaging roughly a point per game in the new year. Can you guess who that player might be? I
have no idea.
I'm trying to think right now. Averaging a point per game in the new year.
Yep.
And he was dealt recently?
He was dealt like within the Kyle Dubas era, yes.
Oh my God.
But not Nazem Kadri. He's well over a point a game.
Yeah, that's not the player that I'm referring to. Not the player I'm referring to. All right, I'll give you 1 guess each, and then I'll come out and I'll tell you the name.
Oh.
I mean, how many guys have been traded in the last
few
years?
I'm blanking on all the trades outside of Nazem Kadri, because I'm just upset about that one.
There's been so many moves like lately.
It is Trevor Moore.
Oh yeah, no, he's had a good year.
Guys that they traded to the Kings. I was gonna say, like, it can't be Sean Dursey, so I'm wondering if it was like, okay, I know what I did read about Trevor Moore, so I probably should have glued in on that.
Yeah, I was looking up like a week ago. I was looking up stats and just seeing like what people have done since the new year. So this statistic is a week old, but as of last week, he had 19 points in 21 games in 2022. Not too shabby. Not too shabby for a guy who we pegged as a 4th liner.
I'm just looking right now. He, in his last 21 games, he has 23 points. And he's averaging 17 minutes a night.
There you go.
I would never have thought of that when they traded Trevor Moore.
No, and I think that's part of the thing too. Is a lot of times when they trade the Trevor Moores, the Mason Marchments, you look at the roster at the time and you're like, where does he fit in the roster? And you're like, we could put him on the 4th line, but are we getting anything out of him on the 4th line? Or I think this is a big reason that Dubas is well liked among players around the league. Or do you go and find him an opportunity somewhere else? And I think it's something he's done with a bunch of different players, including Trevor Moore, and at the end of the day, Mason Marchment too.
And what you get back in turn.
Well, here's the thing, though. You say that, but at the time when they trade him away, Andreas Janssen was in your top 6. Go look at those 2 comparables right now. So you made that move, right? You expected Janssen and Kapanen to be the much better players. And hey, I thought that was going to be the case too. I never expected for either Marchment or Trevor Moore to be anything more than 4th liners. And here they are averaging a point per game, and Kasperi Kapanen struggling to stay healthy, struggling in a middle 6-ish role with the Penguins. And then Andreas Janssen got off to a hot start, but hasn't really been doing much as of late there. It's just, it is what it is. You're not going to bat 1,000 as a general manager, but I think we're all in agreement that at the end of the day, Kyle Dubas has done a decent job, not only, in his trades, but also he's done pretty good when it comes to drafting, and the cupboard is far from bare. And if they want to make a deal, they want to be able to make a move and go and get a guy to help this team, he's got the picks and prospects to get it done. And now maybe even a lot of cap space as well to get it done, depending on what happens here with Jake Muzzin. Tony, really appreciate it. It's been a while since we've had you on the show, but man, it was good to have you on. Good chatting, and we'll have to do it again real soon.
Yeah, but I always have to come on with you guys, and hopefully I'll have a little bit more open time for you guys because I enjoy coming on.
Well, if we do get a busy deadline where we see some of these prospects go, that probably sounds like a perfect time to reach back out and see exactly what your analysis of the trade might be. Did we give up a future Mason Marchment? You let me know. Who do you think in the roster, right? Like if there's somebody right now who could be like that next Mason Marchment, who do you think that could be? Joey Anderson? Could Joey Anderson turn out to be that guy?
I guess no, I don't think the ceiling's that high, but at the same time, I didn't think the ceiling was that high on Mason
That's
Marchment
what I
when he was
mean.
out too. I think the guy that honestly, and from the prospect pool, if we're going to go even a little bit deeper in the younger terms, is a guy like Matthew Nyes. I think that's the guy if you trade, that'd be the one guy I'd probably really regret, him or Topi Niemela. I think those are the two guys you really try hard to keep on. And then a guy like Ronnie Hervin, that's a great piece to move. A guy like Ryan Tverberg, sell high because he did have this great year and he was really, really good and really close to making the Team Canada roster for the junior team. So you look around the edges, just try not to trade off that tip.
Yeah, but you never know who that guy's going to be. Really, you
and
don't.
It depends on the return too, right?
No, of course. If you're getting, JT Miller, you probably are okay with parting with a Matt Nyes or a Topi Niemela. Maybe not both, but you can give up one of those guys for a stud like that. Anyways, Tony, really appreciate taking the time to join us today, and we'll definitely chat again down the road. That's going to do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasts and platforms and receive daily Leafs content. You can check us out on YouTube, Locked On Leafs. Check us out on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck, at D_Morassutti, at Locked On Leafs, and at the Tony Ferrari as well on Twitter. Tony, what are you working on? Anything that you want to plug here for before you leave?
I had a fun article that was supposed to go out until the world came falling apart recently. So we've kind of put that on hold because it was a NHL rookie superlative. So it was kind of making fun of some of the rookies and Moritz Seider and Cole Caulfield and guys like that, just poking fun a little bit, but also talking about how good the seasons they're all having and whatnot. And then I've got just other prospect stuff coming out, and I'm thinking about maybe working on some NHL work too, maybe featuring Austin Matthews. So we'll see.
Oh, and if you do, we'll definitely have to read it, plug it, and we'll pick you apart on the show about what you had to say.
I can't wait.
Matthews. Again, really appreciate taking the time to join us today. For Dave and Tony, I'm Mike DiStefano. We'll be back with another episode tomorrow, but until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.